core PHP before. You should also be familiar with object-oriented concepts and have some working knowledge of databases like MySQL or SQLite. It's also nice to have a good understanding of HTTP requests, but not an absolute requirement. If you know the concepts of MVC architecture, short for Model View Controller, you will be able to pick up Laravel concepts much faster, but even this is not an absolute requirement. Apart from these knowledge requirements, I recommend having a dedicated computer or a laptop with a good internet connection for a seamless learning experience. You also need a GitHub account to practice building along with the course. If you don't Laravel is an open source web framework, one of the most popular among PHP developers currently. It provides a structure and a starting point for your application so you can focus on building something awesome instead of sweating the details. You can build scalable, robust, and secure full stack web applications with Laravel is an open source web framework, one of the most popular among PHP developers currently. It provides a structure and a starting point for your application so you can focus on building something awesome instead of sweating the details. You can build scalable, robust, and secure full stack web applications with Laravel faster than ever. If you're a PHP developer willing to take your career to the next level, or if you're coming from a different tech stack, this course is for you. We will start by learning the basics of Laravel and then learn more by building a simple yet fully functional web application using the framework. I am Shruti Balasa, a tech educator and a full stack web developer. I have worked with Laravel for more than 5 years and PHP itself for more than 12 years right now. Join me in this course and let's together build something amazing while learning the fundamentals of Laravel. Instead of sweating the details. You can build scalable, robust, and secure full stack web applications with Laravel faster than ever. If you're a PHP developer willing to take your career to the next level, or if you're coming from a different tech stack, this course is for you. We will start by learning the basics of Laravel and then learn more by building a simple yet fully functional web application using the framework. I am Shruti Balasa, a tech educator and a full stack web developer. I have worked with Laravel for more than 5 years and PHP itself for more than 12 years right now. Join me in this course and let's together build something amazing while learning the fundamentals of Laravel. Before you proceed with this course, you should have a good understanding of HTML and should have worked with core PHP before. You should also be familiar with object-oriented concepts and have some working knowledge of databases like MySQL or SQLite. It's also nice to have a good understanding of HTTP requests, but not an absolute requirement. If you know the concepts of MVC architecture, short for Model View Controller, you will be able to pick up Laravel concepts much faster, but even this is not an absolute requirement. Apart from these knowledge requirements, I recommend having a dedicated computer or a laptop with a good internet connection for a seamless learning experience. You also need a GitHub account to practice building along with the course. If you don't have one already, create it before you move further. If you're ready, let's get started. Laravel framework is largely based on the MVC architecture. MVC is a way of building a huge application by splitting it into three parts: models, views, and controllers. This makes maintaining the application easy as it grows and avoids repetition of code, along with few other benefits. The model contains all the logic related to the application's data, like the schemas, the databases, and their fields. This is the part where you write the code to interact with the database. The view contains the user interface. All the components that the user sees on the web page and interacts with are included in the views. The controller is what connects the model and the view. It handles all the interactions between these two components. So, in simpler words, the user interacts with the web page, which is the view. The controller takes the user's input from the view, uses some logic to translate that input into a request for the model. The model grabs the data from the database, interacts with it in any other way, and finally, the controller passes this data back from the model to the view for the user to see it. Once you have this basic concept in mind, during the course, you will better understand why a specific block of code is added in a particular file and not elsewhere. Now, let's go ahead. CodeSpaces is a code editor in the cloud with the full power of Visual Studio Code. This entire course is created using GitHub CodeSpaces so that you can practice along with me from wherever you are without having to install anything in your system. To get started, you can create a CodeSpace directly from the course interface page. Click Open next to GitHub CodeSpaces. If you're already logged into GitHub, you'll be directed to a Getting Started with GitHub Codespaces page. If not, you need to log in or create a free GitHub account first. On this page, click on Create Codespaces on Main button. The first time you create a code space, it takes several minutes to create the virtual machine and set up everything you need. That's what is happening right now. Wait until all the setup is done and you see something like this. This code editor is a special version of Visual Studio Code running on GitHub servers. There are some extensions which are pre-installed for our course. You can look at them in this extensions panel. The File Explorer here will show you all the files of our project in the current branch. We are in the main branch of our repository right now. You can see the branch name right here at the bottom. Click on it. You'll see multiple branches here with names such as 0407, 0304, and so on. Each of these branches is associated with one video in the course. For example, the branch named 0304 is associated with Chapter 3, Video 4. You'll also see two branches for each video, 0304B and 0304E. The branch with the suffix B is the beginning state, whereas the one with E is the ending state. So if you switch to the branch 0304B, that's exactly the state of the project at the beginning of Chapter 3, Video 4. And 0304E is the state at the end of the same video. So at any point in the course, if you feel lost, you can switch to the corresponding branch and continue from there. But there's one thing to note. The moment you start a new code space, you'll get a unique URL. This will become the app URL for Laravel. So if you're developing locally on your system, this will always be localhost, so there's no problem. But since we're using code spaces, we need to set the asset URL configuration in this file called .env for certain things to work correctly. Again, this is automatically taken care of for you. The moment you start a new code space, this line gets added automatically for you. Now, this was already existing. This will be overridden with your asset URL with this URL which is unique to you. This project setup is perfect. You don't need to change anything. But whenever you try to switch to a new branch, for example, let me try and switch to 0502E, you might see an alert like this. your local changes would be overwritten by checkout. That's because this asset URL is the local change. What you need to do here is click on migrate changes whenever you see an alert like this. Leave the stash message blank, hit enter. And if you see that there are any merge conflicts that will appear here at the right bottom corner, if it does, view the changes and make sure to retain this incoming change. This would be called the incoming change and this would be called the original change. Accept all the incoming changes to make sure that your asset URL in your .nv file is always related to your URL. And then you're good to go. Also, while working with code spaces, if you end up closing the browser window, or in my case, I installed the CodeSpace Chrome app, if I end up closing this window, don't worry. Your changes will be automatically saved in your GitHub account. You can go back to GitHub, CodeSpaces, and open it, continue from wherever you left. Whether you're working with code spaces or using an IDE of your choice in your local dev environment, this is the starting point of your Laravel application. You will see the same set of files and folders in a fresh Laravel app. The first thing to do now is to start the development server. Open a new terminal within your editor. Go to View, Terminal. Anymore, I will use the keyboard shortcut Command J to open or close this terminal. If you're on Windows, the shortcut might be Control J. Now run the command php artisan serve. The server is now running. You can visit this URL in your browser by pressing the command key on Mac or control key on Windows and clicking on it. You will see a wonderful splash screen. This is a new Laravel application. If you scroll to the bottom of the page, you can see which Laravel version is currently installed. In my case, it's version 11.10. If you're practicing using code spaces, you will see the same version. But if you install Laravel in your local system, you might see a newer version at the time of installation. Certain things might look different if something has changed, but mostly everything will work the same. Coming back to the terminal, remember we typed this command php artisan serve. Laravel provides a command line interface called artisan. You can view a list of all the helpful artisan commands by using php artisan list command. Click on a new tab, type php artisan list. Of course, if you're using Docker and Sail to run Laravel in your local system, you will have to replace PHP in the commands. Wherever I type PHP, you have to replace and type Sail instead. So this is the huge list of commands that Laravel provides out of the box. We will use a lot of these commands like PHP artisan migrate and then make controller, make model, and many of these. Let's go on. We are looking at a new Laravel application. Now it's time we look at the code, find out where this content is located, and make some edits. This is Visual Studio Code within Codespaces. You can use an IDE of your choice if you're developing locally outside of Codespaces. This is your Laravel app codebase. With these many files and folders, it's easy for a beginner to get overwhelmed at first. For the basic app that we are going to build in this course, we only need to access a few of these and we'll take it step by step. The very first thing we find out is where this content is being fetched from. In a core PHP project, you need to have an index.php that is fetched when you type localhost or access the root URL. You can find that index.php within the public folder right here. But you cannot immediately make sense of anything in this, right? So where is the HTML content that is shown here coming from? Laravel, just like any other frameworks, has routes. They are defined in a routes file located in the routes directory, which is here. You can see two files here, but web.php is the only one we're going to use in this course. This contains all the web routes. You see, we have a single route defined here, which is the base URL for our project. This returns the welcome view. Command click or control click on this link to open the view file. This is exactly the page we are seeing on the browser. To verify, let's search for this word Laracasts here and change it to something else. Here we go, Laracasts, and let me change it to Laracasts videos and save the file. Go back and refresh the browser. You can see that it's updated. Alright, let's go back to the routes file web.php. Let's just copy this route declaration, paste it below, and change this URL to something else. Like let's say we change it to home. Now go to the browser and type /home. And you see, we see the exact same welcome view. Try accessing some other route like welcome or something, and you get a 404 page not found error. If you go back to the routes file and comment out the first route and try accessing the base URL this time, you get the same error. So web.php is the file where you need to register every single route in your project. We just saw that a route returns a view. We can even return any HTML code within this function like return h1 welcome or something like that. Go to the browser, refresh the page, and you see the HTML right here. But since we cannot practically return entire HTML for entire pages like this, we use separate files called views. Views are located in the resources directory. In the views directory, welcome.blade.php. This is the one we opened earlier. Now let's carefully look at the code here. If you scroll to the top and then scroll down bottom slowly, you'll see something on line 27, line 29, line 36, and so on. This is neither HTML or PHP. Also, these curly braces on line 31 and 38 and so on. All of this is Blade syntax. Blade is a templating engine used in Laravel. Before we talk about Blade in detail, let's create another view by creating another view file here. New file. And let's name it home.blade.php. Since we wish to create a blade template, the file name has to end with blade.php instead of just php. Let this be a simple HTML document with a h1 element, hello laravel. To display this page, we need a route. So head over to the routes file web.php, change the home route to return the home view we created just now. So replace this with home. As you might have noticed, you don't have to type home.blade.php, it's just home. Now go to the URL/home. You can see the view that we just created. While returning the view, you can even pass some variables as second argument. Here in this routes file, let's pass in a name variable and a value like so. Name, I will put in my name, Shruti. Now in the home view, let's replace laravel with the name variable. In PHP, you would use echo, you would use the PHP tags and then echo name like so. This works perfectly fine. You can even take a look, refresh, and this works. However, in Blade, you can simply wrap the variable name in curly braces like so. Now save the file, go to the browser, refresh, you see that the variable data is displayed here. Notice how much more readable this is. Blade also has convenient shortcuts for common PHP structures like if statements and for loops. For example, you can remove this, add an if statement here and say if name equals Shruti, say hello admin, else say hello and pass in the name variable. You also have to end this with an end if directive. These are called Blade directives, if, else, end if. Now save the file and go back to the browser and refresh. So this works as expected. These definitely look much neater than plain PHP. We will come across more Blade directives as we go further in our course. Blade templates are not only helpful for displaying data and replacing common PHP structures, we can also use them to build and maintain layouts in Laravel. Most web applications have the same generic layout across various pages like header, navigation bar, sidebar, and footer. Blade provides two methods for creating layouts by reusing code. First is by using template inheritance, second is by using Blade components. Let's look at template inheritance first. Consider this web page with a nav bar and a main section. The code for the same can be found in home.blade.php. I will quickly access and open files using the keyboard shortcut Command P. So it gives me this place to search for the file. I can quickly search and open. So this entire markup is currently in home.blade.php. But if we need another view like an about page with the similar navbar and content section, repeating this entire code is not a good idea. So let's create a layouts folder within views, new folder, layouts, add a file called base.blade.php, copy all the code from home.blade.php into the base file. I will close the file explorer for now. Now let's retain all the common structure. The content that would change is here, right? So let me cut it out and paste it in home.blade.php. Right? We need to define this as a section using the section directive. Section, and we can call it whatever we want. So let me call this content. This has to end with an end section blade directive. And now this is our view. We need to specify the layout this view needs to inherit, which can be done using the extends blade directive. And here you can give the relative path to that layout, which is in our layouts folder. So you could say layouts/blade, or you could even say layouts.base. And now in the layouts file, in the place you wish to display the content, use the yield directive, yield, and then specify the name given to the section. We called it content. So content it is. So this will be replaced with the content from our blade view. You can go to the browser and verify, refresh, everything still looks the same. Now in the nav bar, let's say you want to get the user's name from the view. So replace this here, go to the nav bar and replace this with yield name. And now this name we might want to specify from the view. So here you can say, you can add another section directive, call it name, and pass in whatever value you want to. So let's say I'll put my name here, and now go to the browser and refresh. Notice that the variable has been replaced with the name. All of this makes it easy to add multiple views following the same base layout. So if you want to try this out, let's create another view, call it about.blade.php. Let's extend the same base layout, layouts.base. And here in the content, let's add something else. And section, let's add a heading, and let's simply say about us. Or you can even copy the styling from here, just change the text to about us. And now we need a view to show this, so go to the web.php routes. We can remove this from here, copy this route, paste it again, change it to about, change the view also to about. In the browser, let's go to the about route and notice that the navbar remains the same. Of course, we need to pass in the user variable here as well. So we can do that. Copy this section here, paste it here, and now we have two different views, about us and home, following the similar layout. So if you wish to change anything in the layout, maybe the color of the navbar or something, you can do that right here in one single place, which is the base layout. Next, let's look at building layouts using Blade components. We'll only cover the basic concept in this video. This time, let's create a components folder inside views, similar to layouts. Let's call it components. The same base.blade.php file, copy this entire thing, or you can copy it into the components folder like so. Replace the yield directives with simple variables like within curly braces like this. So name and content. Now in the home view, replace the extents directive with an x base tag. This also has to be the closing x base tag. Let me put it here. Notice that we don't even have to say layouts or components or anything, because when we use Blade components, all the files, all the components go in here. So the moment you prefix it with x hyphen, it takes in the name from here. This looks very consistent with the markup as compared to the Blade directives. Instead of sections here, we use the x slot tags. So you can say x slot and use the name attribute to specify the name of this. So in our case, it will be name again, and the content of the name goes here. This again will be replaced by x slot, and here the name is content, and this closes with an x slot closing tag. View this in the browser to verify. Let's go to the home route and notice that nothing has changed. We can have multiple nested components and multiple slots this way. And this is the most common method followed by Laravel developers right now. So further in the course, we will use blade components method for our layouts and learn more as we go. Looking at our routes once again, for this request, the only action is returning a view. Hence, adding it as a closure makes sense. But this is not always the case. We usually have a lot of logic that goes on for every request. For example, a login request will contain the logic to check if the user's credentials match, to log the user in, or to return an error message, and more. We use controllers to group related logic into a single class. By default, controllers are stored within the app HTTP controllers directory. This is just a default controller created by Laravel for you. Now let's create a new controller using the artisan command php artisan make controller. Now in the older versions, you had to pass more parameters here in this command to create controllers or models, but in the newer version, you can simply do this and hit enter. You will be prompted asking what the name of your controller should be. And as you can see in the example, this is the convention used by Laravel. It has to follow camel case like this. So let's create a new controller, calling it welcome controller. And it asks us what type of controller would you like. For now, since we don't know what the others are, let's just click empty. And the controller has been created for us successfully. Like I said, within the app HTTP controllers directory, you can command click and open this directly. As you can see, it is here. We can of course create this file manually and add all of this code, but using a command is quicker. Now let's add a method index using public function index. And here let's return the welcome view using return view welcome. Go back to the routes file. Now this closure can be replaced with the action, which is the index action in the controller, like so. Welcome controller dot class, and the index action goes as the second parameter, like so. And when I typed welcome controller, you might have noticed this use statement got added automatically. This is taken care of by the VS Code extension PHP IntelliSense. It's installed here already for you, so you don't have to worry. Now save this file, save both the files, go to the browser and refresh. Everything works just the same. Instead of returning the view directly here, we went through the welcome controller using an index file. So now we can add more logic into here whenever we need. So we just created our first controller and defined our route to it. At the end of most chapters in this course, I've added a quick challenge so you can reinforce whatever you've learned so far. At any point while solving it, if you realize you haven't got your concepts clear, you can always go back to the relevant video and relearn before you've progressed a lot more in the course. Each challenge in the course is explained in a video like this one. You need to first switch to the correct branch in code spaces. The challenge branches are named like 01 challenge, 02 challenge, and so on, starting with the chapter number you're currently in. So for this challenge, you need to switch to 01 challenge and start here. Once you've completed the challenge, you can watch the next video where I show you how I would solve it. That way, you can compare your solution with mine. Alright, so here's the first challenge. Create a blade file with a simple paragraph hello world. Then create a controller called greeting controller with an index method that renders this blade view you just created. And then create a route called hello which calls the index method in the greeting controller. So once you've created these, you should be able to go to the hello URL and be able to see the hello world greeting. That means your solution is correct. Here's a solution to the challenge. The first task is to create a blade view. Navigate to the resources directory, views, create a new file and call it greeting.blade.php. I'll add the basic HTML structure and create a paragraph that says hello world. Alright, now we need a new controller. So I will run the command php artisan make controller. I can pass the name of the controller right here, greeting controller. This is created. Let me open it. Create an index method here, public function index. Let me return the blade view that I just created, return view greeting. And now we need to call this index method from a route. So open web.php, create a new get route, route get, and the URL here needs to be hello. Now let's call the index action of the greeting controller class index. All right, let's go to the browser to the URL hello and see if we see our paragraph hello world, and we do. So our solution is perfect. Every application has a bunch of configuration values that need to be accessed from different files all across the application, like the name of the app, database credentials, mail service credentials, and so on. To help manage all these environment variables, Laravel has a .env file at the root of the application. These are some app-related variables like name, environment, application key, which is unique to each project, then the app debug value, which determines how much of the error information should be displayed to the user. In the local environment, this is set to true by default because the error information is helpful for the developer to debug. But in production, this value should be set to false. Otherwise, you risk exposing sensitive data. App URL is the base URL. In production, this would contain your domain name. Here's a set of database credentials, including the type of connection, username, password. If you're using version control like Git, you need to note that this file should not be committed to your repository. You have to add this file to git ignore. It's not added here because I'm using code spaces and the environment file is very much needed. But if you install a new Laravel application in your local development environment, you will see that this .env file is already added in git ignore. This is not only for security reasons, it's also because each person in your team might have a different set of configuration values and your production server also, which is why we have a .env.example file which has all the variable names similar to .env file without the values or with default values. This file is committed to the repository and everybody on the team can use it to create or edit their own .env files. So it's important to make changes to this example file too, that is, add all of these new variables whenever you add them to your .env file. Now the values of these .env file are retrieved from various files within the config directory. Look at database.php for example. The env helper method returns the value of this key from the .env file. The second argument value is used as a default value in case the key is not found. Now, when we have to access these environment variables, we should not do this directly using the env function. Instead, we should use them through the configuration. For example, if we wish to access the app name, let's say in our welcome blade view, open welcome.blade.php, and let's say we want to replace this title with our app name. You can do so using the config helper method using the dot syntax. So our app name will be app.name. You can check that right here. If you go to app.php, the application name is a variable in the app.php file. So that's how you access all of these environment variables using the config method. Let's save this file, change our app name here to maybe new app or something like that, and go to the browser, refresh. Notice that this has changed. So I encourage you to browse the contents of all the config files here and get a better hold on what are the configurations available in Laravel. In this course, we will use a MySQL database with Laravel. This default configuration is ready to work with Laravel Sail, which is what we're using within Codespaces. So if you're working locally using Herd, this might look slightly different to you, but you don't have to change the defaults. It will work. A database with this name was already created when the app was created and ready to connect. So everything is set up for us to start working with this database. Before we start creating a table and writing some queries, let's use a GUI tool to interact with the database. This CodeSpace IDE already has a database client extension installed. So you should be able to see this database icon here. If you're working locally, you can download and install a tool like Table Plus. In Codespaces, open the database tool, click on Create Connection, and change these values to match the ones in the environment config. So host is MySQL, username is Sail, password is password. Let me change those. Host MySQL, username Sail, and password, and the database name is Laravel. Click on connect. The connection is successful. If you're able to see this connection here, you can close this and expand this. You can see the Laravel database here with some default tables. Let's see what the users table has. For the moment, I want to delete some unnecessary columns here and keep this simple. So click on this edit icon and remove all the unnecessary columns like email verified, password, remember token. Yeah, even created that and updated that. Let me just keep only ID, name, and email for the moment. All right, close this tab and refresh. Next, I want to manually create two random users. You can click on the yellow plus icon. You can type in any ID, any name, and email. Insert this column and create another user like to John at example.com. Now from within our Laravel application, let's execute some raw SQL queries to fetch this data. Close this as well, and open web.php. Let's reuse this route. Instead of returning a view, let's fetch our users from the database and display them right here. This could be done in 3 different ways in Laravel. Number 1, using raw SQL queries. Number 2, query builder. And number 3 is eloquent ORM. Let's look at the first 2 methods in this video. You can execute raw SQL queries in Laravel with the help of the DB facade. A facade is a simplified interface for complex operations. You'll encounter more facades offered by Laravel in the upcoming videos. To run a raw select query, we can use the select method and we can specify our select query here. So here, let's simply select star from users, and I will remove the second parameter. We will get all the users. Let's store this. This DB is highlighted because we'll have to import the class. You can right click and select import class, and this will be done for you. Let's assign this to a variable called users and then dump and die to the browser. So dd is what we will use a lot to check what we get in this variable. Right, save this file, open the browser and refresh. So we've fetched our users from the database. We can use other methods of the DB facade like delete, insert, update, and more. Next, let's fetch the same users from the database using the query builder instead of raw queries. This is once again done with the DB facade using the table method. Here you specify the name of the table and you can select only certain columns, like say you want only the name and email, and this has to be in an array. You can chain this by further queries of where or where all, where any, and so on. For example, if we want to get only the users where the email is not null, we can say where not null email. You can even order this by any column. So let's say we'd like to order it by name and so on. Finally, let's get the data. Once again, let me store this in the users variable and dd users. I will have to comment these out for this to work. Okay, save the file, go back and refresh the browser. Now this time, notice that we don't simply get an array like we did last time, we get a collection. A lot more can be done with Laravel collections, which we'll explore later in the course. Of course, here we have the data as requested, ordered by name, and only the selected columns. Though the query builder is powerful, for this course we will use Eloquent ORM, which we'll explore soon. Using the database client extension or any other GUI tool, we can create tables manually. Like you can click on create a new table and so on. But in production, creating tables manually is definitely not the best approach. Migrations in Laravel help creating and modifying table structures, acting like version control. So let's create a new students table using migrations. Open terminal and type the command php artisan make :migration and specify the name of the migration, like let's say create students table. This could be any name, but this particular name will help Laravel understand that you're trying to create a students table. Hit enter. The migration is created for us. It's within the database directory and migrations. We use the schema facade to create and modify tables. You can see two methods here, up and down. The up method is used to create a table or column, while the down method is used to drop the table or column in case of rollback. The create method of schema facade is used for creating a new table which takes in the first parameter as the name of the table, and the closure is used to define the table structure. As you can see, Laravel has guessed the table name as students and pre-filled it for you. It also knows that you want to create it. For specifying the columns, you can see two methods here, id and timestamps. Laravel offers multiple such methods for creating different types of columns. The id method creates the primary key id column that auto-increments, and this timestamps method creates two columns, created at and updated at. So you don't have to manually type all of these will be auto-updated. Now let's create two columns of our own, like name and email. So use the string method to create a name column. Also the same method to create an email column as well. Okay, let's run this migration now. Open terminal again and type in php artisan migrate. Now this command will run all the migrations that haven't previously been run. So hit enter. Currently we only have one migration that is new. So this is done. You should be able to see a students table now. Let's refresh tables, and yes, there it is with all the columns that we created. Feel free to explore the structure of the other tables that Laravel created by default, like migrations and password reset tokens and so on. Laravel's Eloquent feature makes it easy and fun to interact with databases. Each table in the database is associated with an Eloquent model. Through these models, we can retrieve, insert, update, and delete the records from the database. Open the terminal and let's create a model using the command php artisan make model followed by the name of the model. By convention, this name should be similar to the table name but should start with an uppercase and be singular. So in our case, the model name associated with the students table will be student. If your table name is college students, then your model name will be college student like so. Alright, so let me remove this and make the student model. This creates your model within the app models directory. This is all you need to be able to interact with your data. Let's look at our students table and refresh. I have inserted some dummy data to be able to fetch them. You can do the same. Let's fetch these using Eloquent. Go back to web.php. Now here, let's use our student model to get all the data from our students table. We can assign it to students and then dump this to see what we get. Once again, I'm going to comment this out and save the file, go to the browser, refresh. Once again, we have a collection here, but this time with an array of student objects, like so. You can iterate through this collection using for each, just like an array. So you can say for each students as student, maybe echo the name of the student, like echo student name and maybe a line break. Let's look at the output. Right. Now using this model class, let me comment this out or remove this. And using this model class, you can also use the same query builder like this and get the same output. So let me copy all of this and paste it here. Just remove this. So student, select name, email, where not null, everything else will be the same. Now let me dump this. We'll see what if we get the same result. Look at the browser, refresh. Yes, we have the exact same result now, but even better with the student objects. Next, let's try and insert some data using Eloquent. Create an object, student equals new student. Student name is, you can give in some name like Jane. Student email, you can give it anything, jane@example.com. And now let's save this using the model and the method save. We will have to comment this out, otherwise this code will not execute. Now let's go to the browser and hit the same route so that this code will execute. Refresh, and we will not see anything here, but let's look at the database client to see if our data was inserted. And yes, there we have the new student created. We will do more of this once we start our real project next. Now here's a challenge. Create a migration to update the students table we created in one of the previous videos to add an additional column status of type string. You might have to search the Laravel official documentation to see how this is done. Run the migration after creating it. Now use Eloquent to get the student where the email is john@example.com, update this student's status as active and save the model. Dump the student model and check the result in the browser. Also, verify by checking the values in the database GUI tool. This branch 02 challenge has some comments in the routes file to help you out. Congratulations if you solved this challenge on your own, but don't be disheartened if you weren't able to find a solution. It is indeed challenging for a beginner. The first task is to create a new migration to update the table. Let's create this migration using the command php artisan make migration. Let's call it update students table. Here's the migration file created for us. Open it. And now go to Laravel documentation, laravel.com, documentation. And on the left, scroll down to find database, migrations. And here, if you look under tables, you'll find a link updating tables. It seems that we need to use the table method on the schema facade for updating existing tables. It looks something like this. So copy these 3 lines and paste it within the up method of your migration file. Update the table name to students, and we need a status column of type string. So change it accordingly, and let's run this migration using php artisan migrate command. Alright, the migration is successful. Let's take a look in the database client, students, and here we go. We do have a new status column. Alright, let's go back to the routes file and first find the model where the email is john@example.com. So student equals, use the student model, use the where clause to find the email john@example.com, and to get a single model we need to use the first method. Okay, this will give us the student. Now update this student's status using the value active. So you can say student status equals active. And now to save the model, you simply have to do student save. Now let's dump the result and see what happens. Sorry, dd student. Okay, let's go to the root URL and see if we get the student with updated status. Go to the root, refresh, and let's look at the attributes. And yes, we do have the status active. We can also verify using the database client, students, and yes, you can see that this row is updated with active column. Learning is incomplete without hands-on experience. We now have the basic understanding of Laravel to start working on a simple project. The rest of this course is dedicated to creating a simple note-taking web application which we call Light Notes. Let's look at the features of the app we will be building. This is the landing page with 2 links, login and register. A new user needs to register with name, email, and password. This creates a new account and logs the user in. An existing user can log in from the login page. Let me log in. You will see all your notes listed as soon as you log in, ordered by showing the latest updated notes first. You can see 5 notes per page and then a pagination at the bottom to view more. You can create a new note right from here. Give it a title, add some text. Both these are required fields, so if you leave any of them empty, you will be prompted, like so. Let me enter it again. Click on save. Once you save the note, you'll be able to see the entire note along with when it was created and when it was changed. You can go back to all notes clicking on the notes, and from here, once again, you can open any of the notes by clicking on the title. Each note has 2 options, to edit it or move it to trash. Let me click on edit note. You can edit either the title or the text or both. Let me try to edit this and click on save. you'll see a flash message, changes saved, that disappears on page refresh. Alright, we can even delete a note. That is, you can move it to trash. You'll be asked for confirmation to move this note to trash. Click on OK. And there's a message move to trash displayed here. Now you can find this note in trash. Clicking on this will again display the full note with two different options. You can either restore this note or delete it permanently. Clicking on restore will immediately move this back to notes, and you can once again edit note or move to trash. Let's move it back to trash again so we can delete it permanently. Click OK. Go to trash, open this again, and this time let's delete it forever. Once again, you will be asked for confirmation. Clicking OK will delete this note forever. And finally, you can log out. Quick summary. We have the complete login flow with register, login, logout, and reset password. You can create notes, view the list, view individual notes, edit them, move to trash, restore deleted items, and delete notes forever. Let's start building the Light Notes app. To build our Light Notes app, we are starting with a new Laravel project. If you want to follow along practicing in your local setup without using code spaces, create a new Laravel app called Light Notes. If you're using code spaces, switch to the main branch or switch to the branch 0302. Now the first thing to implement in our project is authentication. Register, login, logout, password reset, all of these are part of authentication. It would take us a long time to build these manually. Luckily, Laravel has a few starter kits to make this very simple and quick. As you can see, there are two starter kits available, Breeze and Jetstream. Breeze provides a simple and minimal starting point for authentication, while Jetstream offers more advanced features. Breeze uses Tailwind CSS for styling. Even if you have no prior knowledge of Tailwind CSS, it's fairly easy to work with it. But if you choose not to include Tailwind CSS in your project at all, you can choose a package like Laravel UI to add authentication. This package uses the Bootstrap framework. Breeze is what we'll use for our project, so let's go ahead and install it in our application using this command. So I'll copy this, open the terminal and paste it. Run this. This might take a while. Once done, let's use the command php artisan breeze install to install it. Here you'll be asked which stack you prefer. The simplest one is Blade with Alpine, which is what we'll be using in this course, so pick that. I would not choose dark mode support at the moment, so no. Asks you for testing framework. We won't be covering that in this course, so pick any and proceed. Now Breeze is installing and it's also building the node dependencies. Alright, everything seems to be done for us. Let's simply go to the browser and refresh. Now everything else looks the same, but notice you have two new links, login and register. Let's see if this works. Register, let me try registering a new person, which is myself. Alright, register. And great. Let me log out. Logging out also works and log in as the person I just registered. Alright, great. So both login and register works. Let me log out. And if I go to login, you'll also see a link, forgot your password, but this will not work until you set up your email client in the .env file. I'll let you explore that on your own. Now it's time to look at the code that Breeze has added for us. First, open web.php routes file. Let's look at the routes that was added for us. First, we have a dashboard route and we have a set of routes for profile. Note that all of these have the middleware auth, which means only the users who have logged in can access the dashboard route. You can verify this. Since we are logged out now, let's try accessing dashboard. And notice you'll be redirected to the login page. Back to the routes file. All the authentication related routes can be found in auth.php. You can open that here. You can find all of these routes here. And let's look at the controllers, app, HTTP, controllers, and you can see all the authentication related controllers added here. You can take a look at each of them and try and understand what's here. You can also go and look at the resources, views, all of the blade views that were added by Breeze, auth, and then components, and so much more. We have all these view files combined with components and layouts. If you like to gain a deep understanding of how to build layouts and components with Blade, this is a great example to dig in and learn from. But for now, we're simply going to use Blade and start building our app. It's time to change this landing page. While doing so, we'll learn how to add styles to our views. So let's remove all of this from Welcome View. Go to welcome.blade.php. We don't need any of these styles, so let's remove that. And if you scroll down and carefully look here, this is the block of code that's adding our login and register links. So let's retain this and remove everything else. Scroll down and remove all of this. And let me also remove the nav tags right here. Or we can leave the nav tags. Let me just format this. Let me also remove all the dark mode classes. We'll not be using dark mode here. Alright, now go to the browser and refresh.